say it's a great honor and a privilege to be here, and I sincerely hope this message that I'm going to deliver to you hits a chord with you. You are going to sense that I am very passionate about this message. It has literally been the core of my life for almost 30 years. I have been on a mission, you know, almost, I guess, an obsession, if you will, to try to answer a single question. And I believe I will go to my grave trying to find a better answer. And I think it's a question that stands before all of us in the demanding world in which you work. I have a pretty deep appreciation for what you're up against. I've spent a fair amount of time talking to many of you. And, you know, this is a period right now where you're kind of pulling yourself together and mobilizing for the next major storm that this profession offers you. And that's really what it is. It is a major storm that you enter, and it's just built in to the fabric of how this profession actually is designed. But the question that I have spent my life trying to understand a better answer to is simply this: at the 100,000-foot view, it's really, what is the origin of capacity in the human species? And at ground level, that same question is, how do you light it up when it really matters? I want to know, how is it that some people can mobilize this amazing resiliency of spirit, can go into these unbelievable pressure-filled situations, dynamics, and emerge somehow unscathed? They don't lose their health, they don't lose their happiness, they don't somehow come apart. In fact, they bring their best. They're able to bring the very best they have to fully ignite the talent and skill they possess to make it emerge in a brilliant way. How is it that some people melt down like an ice cream cone in the sun when they're facing these pressure situations, and others have this amazing resiliency of spirit? How do we develop as a species, as an individual, as a business unit, as a team, as an auditing department? How do we develop the capacity to be a great fighter, to go into very high-stress venues, and to execute and still have a life, still have the ability to fulfill any other mission that we have in life and not be overwhelmed and consumed by that? I'm going to spend the time I have this morning really helping to bring some of our experience to this issue. I want to spend just a couple minutes talking about the company LGE and give you a little sense of where the technology that I'm going to deliver comes from. It's great for us here, for our staff, that we are here located in Orlando, and it means that we don't have to travel. Most of the time I'm traveling. If you have a moment you want to come by and see our training center, we're at a place called Lake Nona. But as a company, our mission is to help people perform in the storm, to help them ignite their talent and skill regardless of the brutality of the conditions that you have to face. How is it that we can train, mobilize any sort of strategic plan to help you better deal with the coming storm that you're going to face this next year? What practical, real, no pop psychology, no fluff, what can we do to really help you endure those demands in a way that makes you better, makes you more efficient, more effective, and enables you to have a life and not suck all the life out of you during these traumatic times? So the technology, strangely enough, has come from a very unusual arena, an arena that most of you here say, what the world does this have to do with me, with the work that I'm in? It comes from the world of competitive sport. Competitive sport is an arena where numbers rule, just like your arena. As a company, we've lived and died by the numbers. Only the numbers we live and die by are free throw shooting percentages, batting averages, year-end rankings, year-end earnings. We take a small retainer in the life of a professional athlete or a team, and we get paid when and if they complete the mission. If they don't complete the mission, we don't get paid. Dan Jansen, we had two missions. One was an Olympic medal, And 2 was to break the 36-second barrier. Dan Jansen, we trained Dan Jansen for a little over 2 years. We started seriously right after Albertville. We monitored 27 variables in his life for two consecutive years, every single day. He never missed a single day. It was one of the most intense relationships I'd ever had with a professional athlete in our team. And he won an Olympic medal in the same event that he had come in 26th 2 years earlier. And there were 7 people in that race who had faster times than he had ever had in his lifetime. And he broke what was thought to be the barrier that no human being would ever break, equivalent to Roger Bannister's 4-minute mile. He wrote 35.99 on all of his logs the last 6 months prior to Lillehammer. And I love the 1,000. I love the one, which he hated, really. And he broke the 36-second barrier 3 times in the last 3 months prior to the end of his career. Twice at exactly 35.99, and once at a remarkable 35.76, which is incomprehensible at that moment. But this living laboratory of sport is a demanding arena of accountability. The only thing that matters in professional sport is whether or not you win. Winning is everything. And what this provided for us was a living laboratory for distilling the truth about how the mind, the body, and the spirit work in the crucible of pressure. If you came to our training center, you would see we measure everything. If we can't measure it, I don't want to talk about it. I don't even want it out there. We measure every single variable, or it is not even on the platform. And the reason we do, because I want real answers. I want to be able to demonstrate, and I want the data behind it, or we're not going to put it forward. And it has been that relentless adherence to science, the science of human behavior, to all the related sciences, that somehow connect to how the human system was actually engineered. And so that's where the technology has come from. Now, we have worked with 16 number ones in the world. We had to take them where they had never been before. I could tell sports stories for days, but I'm not going to talk about sport anymore. About 15 years into our 30-year history, we got our first request to export this into an arena that wasn't a game. And it was completely surprising to me. We started getting requests to export this into law enforcement. Now we work with some of the most elite anti-terrorist, hostage rescue, FBI teams in special law enforcement in the world, and special forces. We've had several people deployed in Afghanistan who have come back and given us feedback about the relevancy of this training to life and death venues. And this is another crucible of pressure that really matters. Sport is something we care a lot about, but really doesn't matter. But as soon as we started to apply this in arenas that had real consequences, we started to look even more definitively at how these protocols are affecting outcomes in people's lives. What can we do to ensure that you complete the mission and complete it safely? Then we started getting involved in medicine. 100,000 people lost their lives in preventable accidents last year in hospitals. 100,000. And it wasn't because they didn't have the attending surgeons or physicians or nursing staff or critical care workers. It wasn't because they didn't have the right training or they didn't have sufficient talent. The fact is, they fumbled the ball when it mattered. They couldn't light it up. They couldn't summon under whatever conditions they were in. Somehow they just didn't execute. They didn't complete the mission. And because of that, someone died. If that someone is someone you cared about, it is completely unacceptable. Our mission in medicine, and we work with entire medical systems. Every week we have lots of surgeons, physicians, anesthesiologists, critical care workers going through the training. Our purpose is to try to get that number to be non-existent. And then we've gotten involved in the last many years in working with executives, with business executives, senior leaders from all over the world. And obviously I want to take this and see if we can make sense out of the world of pressure that you face. and see if this technology actually applies. I'm going to start with a video. This is a video that portrays pretty vividly what happens to the human species when it is put into a situation when it is not well prepared. These are 4 NFL stars. And this, I will tell you, happens to everyone. If I put you into this situation, I'm going to tell you this is, I don't care how tough you are, you're likely going to respond in the same way. But on the second day, and it happens to everyone, all the athletes we train, but we do it for demonstration purposes. So we get their attention. And they were given a mission, a very simple mission. We have a wilderness trail on our property that goes out 1 mile. Actually goes out much further, and there's a white fence that crosses the trail at the 1 mile marker. They are given the instruction, all 4 of them, to go out and simply each person touch the white fence. Big deal. Touch the white fence. Yeah, okay. And return to the training center in under 18 minutes. A 2 mile, 18-minute run for a professional athlete is a walk in the park. It's no big deal. So they go, all right, fine. We point the trail out to them, and they're just about out the door. Say, heads up, we have water moccasins in Florida. You have water what? Water moccasins. They are snakes, they are aggressive, and they're deadly. And that little canal that's beside the path, they come out of that canal and they sun themselves on the path occasionally. Just keep your eyes open. But complete the mission. Do you remember the mission? Yeah, touch the white fence. Okay. They're almost out the door, and we say, we're in Florida. We have alligators in Florida. Yeah. They can get pretty good size, 12, 14 feet. They come out of that canal, and sometimes they're on that path. Now, they're not going to go after you, but it's a good idea to keep your eyes open. Get around them and complete the mission. They go, well, why are you sending us out there where there's snakes and alligators? Can't we just go out here and warm up? No. Go. They're almost out the door, and we say, heads up. One last thing. Now pay attention to me on this one. We have wild boars in Florida. They are mean, they are aggressive, and they're dangerous. If you see a wild boar, take appropriate action. But complete the mission. They go, God, jeez. Go! So we start the timer. At about a half a mile into the run, we have a staff member positioned in a blind with a camera. And he makes the sound of a wild boar. Can we play this, please? Thank you. Two of those guys ran all the way back to the training center. And what do you think my question is to them? Did you complete the mission? Well, no. No? Why? What happened? Well, we heard something. You heard something. Did you see anything? No, did you see anything? No, did you see anything? You heard something, and that's the reason? And then we sit them down and show them the video. And they die. And this happens to the toughest. I mean the very toughest. So I would like to show you the next video, but I can't because it's always the same. They always confiscate the videos. These are always these special forces units, anti-terrorist units, the most elite anti-terrorist units, and hostage rescue team members. And because they were not supposed to see their faces. But I'll act it out. It's always the same. In fact, the first time we did this, the guy in the blind freaked. Because this is how they respond. They are taught, trained, to read and react appropriately, and they are trained never is it appropriate to panic. They must complete the mission. if it's humanly possible. So the last time we had 5 members of a senior members of an elite anti-terrorist unit from Quantico. They're going down in the same sound, exactly the same setup, and they all turn simultaneously like this. In the direction of the sound, they go, oh, what the heck is that? They go right on down and touch the white fence. Always happens the same. What's the lesson to be learned? Anybody? Training. You respond the way you've been trained. If you let instincts rule, a lot of times it's going to take us out of the game. We respond the way we've been trained. We need to respond in a certain way when we go into a storm. We can teach the human system is amazingly adaptive if we simply train it. And the second thing is, no matter how simple the mission, if you get the wrong emotions going, it's very likely to be doomed. It can be derailed, even the simplest mission, when we get the wrong emotions going. So, I want to talk about training. What can we do as elite athletes? And that's how I'm going to refer to you, and I'll tell you why. The first takeaway I hope you get from this presentation is this. Your mind, your body, and your spirit work like every athlete that we've ever trained in 30 years. You have the same equipment. Exactly the same. We did demand studies on people in work like yours and compared them to elite athletes. I'd always revered athletes, always thought they were the quintessential examples of grace under pressure, of toughness, of all these dynamics that will enable people to do these amazing things in sport. Well, I will tell you, I completely got blown away. When we did the studies, there were 6 of us on this research team. We discovered that the demands on you exceed anything we have ever seen in any sport across the board. There are more demands on your energy. You have more demands on concentration, on focus. You have a longer work day than any athlete that we have ever seen. The average work day of a professional athlete is 4 to 5 hours. How many would love that job? You're absolutely on call. You are showtime at least twice that, sometimes 3 times that. During tax season, it's not even comparable. The number of hours you work in a week and are held accountable. Most of the time an athlete works is at work. It's practice time. They can screw up and go, hey, I was just practicing. How many times can you say the same thing to clients? Hey, I was just practicing with you. It's showtime. You have virtually no practice time. Only 10% of the life of a professional athlete are they really held fully accountable. The rest of the time, they're preparing themselves to go into the storm, to bring the best out in themselves. As Dan Jansen, we train in a specific way so that in his final race, he could do what nobody has ever done before. Break a record, be truly extraordinary. And he went from being the heartbreak kid and maybe the greatest choker in sports history. Hundreds of a second separated him from that to being a sports hero. And it was the training that he went into that helped him create the conditions, the internal conditions that allowed it to happen. But how much time do you train? You virtually never train. You wing it. And yours is not a game. You're asking more of your mind, body, and spirit than any athlete has ever worked in the context of competitive sport. All the brutality, and I will tell you, competitive sport is brutal, but so is your world. I couldn't find an athlete that could walk in your shoes. They'd melt down in a week if we put them into your shoes during tax season. They couldn't handle it, particularly if they ate the food you eat. Never work out, never take breaks. You have fundamentally, this is your off season. You're still working, I don't know how many hours a week, but you're still bumping and grinding away. Never shut that big engine down. And the longevity of a professional athlete's 5 to 7 years. I started working with Jim Curry when he was 14, and he retired at 31, a multi-millionaire. And he says to me, you know, I really had a long career. I go, really? Really? Well, how long is your career? You got to hang in there, keep it together for 30 to 40, maybe 50 years. I'm going to tell you, it's more important what you eat, that you exercise, that you train than any athlete that ever lived. Yours is not a game, and there isn't for you. I mean, if you can't handle the forces of real life, where do you go? You know, if Dan Jansen had failed, God forbid, fallen again in his last Olympic bid, what would have happened to Dan Jansen? I'll tell you what happened to Dan Jansen. He'd have gotten a job. He'd have joined us in the real world. He'd have just joined us. How many of you have the option going, hey, screw this, I'm going to go play professional ball? So, I'm going to tell you you're an athlete. You're in a very competitive world. You have to drive all your genius. You have to bring it forward in the competitive forces. You're an athlete. You're not just an athlete. You are the athlete of all athletes. The only problem is you don't see it that way. And I hope I can get you to start rethinking the territory so that you don't end up like those 4 athletes in a simple mission, finding yourself inappropriately responding, so you cannot achieve extraordinary when it's important to you. Here is the question we ask every single person who comes into our training center. And I'm going to ask it to you right now. Everybody in this audience are simply ordinary human beings. There's nobody in here that's superhuman. Even the 16 number ones, there was no one better in the world. I will guarantee you, the more you got to know them, the more you recognized you're ordinary human beings. But if they turned in an ordinary performance when it really mattered, it was failure. And sometimes it was catastrophic failure. They had to understand how to take themselves as an ordinary human being to truly extraordinary when it mattered most. No excuses. That, to me, is the most important thing we have to understand as an individual, and this is about you. This whole presentation is not about your firm so much or all the things that, you know, we could talk about in terms of the business and strategy. This is about you. And I believe the most important part of your business is this focus. What is the pathway from being an ordinary human being to extraordinary? I know in my own life, I have lots of things where I can't be ordinary. I have 3 sons. And I can never remember a time in my life when I was expected to be anything from them other than an extraordinary father. And I tell you, that's who I want to be. I want to be an extraordinary father to my 3 sons until my last breath. And I will tell you, I don't care what storm I face, I don't care how many demands in my life, I must complete that mission, whatever it is, whatever it takes. I lost my father a couple of years ago. It was a big traumatic event for me, as it is for anybody who loses someone you care so much about. He was my hero. And my mother and father were married for 63 years, a very long time. My mother had my father at her side for 63 years. Now she's alone. She's in Denver. I'm in Orlando. She's in this big house in Denver, all alone. And she won't leave that house. She just won't go. And she's pretty frail. She wants and she needs me to be an extraordinary son. And I will tell you, I must complete that mission. For me, in fact, if I can't complete that mission, if I can't complete the mission with my 3 sons, I will, in my own eyes, have failed as a human being. And I don't care how many demands I have in my job, those missions, I simply cannot fail. Even though I know Jim Lair's an ordinary guy, I can't be an ordinary son to my mother, and I can't be an ordinary father to my 3 sons. I need to understand how to walk that path. I'm the CEO of LGE Performance Systems. I want to be extraordinary in my leadership. I don't want to be ordinary. If I can, I must step aside. No one would have showed up today if you, oh, Larry's going to do an ordinary presentation. You're out of here. I want to be extraordinary for you here. If I went around this room and asked each one of you, there are areas in your life where ordinary is simply not acceptable. And you're going to go into a storm. And will you have the capacity, the bandwidth, to bring that out in you regardless of the brutality of those storms? It's all about training for storms. The wild boar is simply a metaphor for storms. And I will tell you, there are lots of wild boars in our life. Some are real and some are imagined, but they are out there. They are there. And here is the biggest takeaway that we came to when we finally got this. Our business dramatically changed in terms of our successes. And a lot of people thought we were using drugs to get the chance. If I could tell you all the things that we've done, you just simply can't believe them. Even when I look at it, I can hardly believe it. And here's what it was. We came to understand that the pathway from ordinary to extraordinary is one thing. Fundamentally, it's extraordinary energy. It's the quantity and quality and focus and force of energy you bring to whatever situation you want to be extraordinary in, period. And there is no substitute. It will be the energy you bring to whatever time you have. And I had it completely wrong. I wish I had understood this years before, but almost everybody I come in contact with doesn't get it. And once you get it, it changes the ground you walk on. And there's a sweet spot in your energy. It's the holy grail of extraordinary. It's your power as a human being to make things happen in your life and in the lives of others, in the lives of your clients. And it's what we give it 2 words: full engagement. Fully engaged in its simplest connotation simply means you invest. Energy is an investment. It's an investment of your full and best energy you have to give as a human being, and it's the hardest thing for you and me to give to the world. We're very stingy with our energy, and it is the one thing that will determine whether or not you move in any dimension of your life from ordinary to extraordinary. We are complex energy systems. That's who we are. We're cells of potential energy. Nothing happens without mobilizing the right focus and force, quantity and quality of energy. And this is very hard for us to do. Full engagement is the recruitment of the full spectrum of energy potentials we possess as human beings, invested right here, right now, in this moment. And that's what we taught athletes to do, and to do it in the storm so that they could execute. That's what we teach physicians. That's what we teach anti-terrorist teams. And that's what I hope you begin to understand here. This is very trainable. But your mind, your brain, and your body have been designed to exact the lowest possible metabolic cost for doing any activity possible. That's how you were designed. That's how your ancestors survived when food was scarce. And that's why you're sitting, we can't even imagine going back in history when we had to actually get up and change the channel on the television. I mean, no remote, I can't live. You don't want to use energy to do anything. It's like we're always conserving, hoarding energy. But to be extraordinary, you have to be a world-class spender. You have to spend energy like it's going out of style. You have, in a sense, an abundance of energy because you've made world-class deposits to back it up. When you are tired, the game is fundamentally over. The ignition of your genius, the ability for you to influence, to tell people how much you care about them. The way you show you care about something is you invest extraordinary energy in it, or in them. We learned a very important principle that I hope you will never forget. Because if you keep this in mind, it changes how you think and how you operate in the world. And it's fundamentally this. Anything you give your energy to, you give it life. Growth follows energy investment. You want to have an extraordinary bicep? You say, Jim Lair, you know what I want? I want to have an extraordinary bicep. That's what I want in life. Well, I'll tell you, there's only one way you're going to get it. That's if you invest extraordinary energy, way beyond anything you've ever done, in your bicep. The quantity, the quality, the focus and force of energy you invest in that bicep has to be at a certain level. And if you do it consistently, I will promise you, you will develop over a span of time an extraordinary bicep. You want to have an extraordinary relationship with your 3 sons, Jim Lair? I have to invest that kind of energy in that relationship, and it will grow. And there is no substitute. I can talk about it, think about it, want it, be motivated, pray about it. It's not going to grow, this bicep, In that dynamic, the mind and body are one. I want to grow in patience, kindness, time management. I want to grow in my short game in golf. I want to get a better short game. It's not the amount of time you invest in your short game. It will be the energy specifically you bring to the time that you have in practicing your short game. And the greater specificity and precision in the investment, the better the return. And this, I'm going to ask you to start thinking about who and what has gotten your best energy, your full engagement historically. You are fundamentally the result, the consequence of your energy investments thus far in your life. And your destiny, as I hope you begin to understand as I move forward in this presentation, will follow the pattern of your energy investments moving forward. Understanding that the hardest gift you have to give and the most powerful is your energy. And we completely wing it. Most of us never give a thought. We think it's time. You think, well, you know, time is sacred, and if I just invest time in it, it'll be unbelievable. But I will guarantee you can invest an hour in your short game every day. You can invest years in a marriage. You can spend lots of time together, and you get a reverse return. There's no growth there. In fact, it's worse. And so, what we're going to try to understand is, what does full engagement represent? The forces, I will tell you, of disengagement are massive. This data is U.S. data. It comes from the Gallup organization. We do, these engagement surveys all the time. And it really helps us to get some idea of how disengaged a workforce is. I haven't done it in your industry in quite some time. But this data is alarming. It's the truth. Their data is completely consistent with our findings. Only 1 in 4 people are fully engaged in the context of their work. That means 3 out of 4 are either not fully engaged, in other words, partially disengaged, or actively disengaged. And a full 19% of the workforce across the United States, and these numbers are pretty representative worldwide, a full 19% are actively disengaged. It means their energies are actually moving against the mission. In a sense, they hope this sucker fails. You're getting a paycheck, you're showing up, but your energies are not mobilized and in alignment with the mission. In sport, we get all these people referred to us who were stalled out in their careers. And they get in there and they go, I can't stand the coach. The coach is a jerk, I'm not playing for him. I can't stand the fans, they are brutal on me. I make one mistake and they boo me. You know, I've had injuries, I can't, every time I get on a roll, the injuries come. I can't stand the home office, I hate the city, it goes on and on. Those are all wild boars. And in our world, this is what it looks like. These are the number one issue in most people's lives in terms of a disengager is their boss. It's insensitive bosses, bosses who push too much, bad managers. Corporate scandals are huge, as you have sensed in your work with all the giants who came to their knees. Ugly office politics, rigid inflexible rules, insufficient support and training, few opportunities for growth, lack of performance feedback, and every one of these is a wild boar. And I'll tell you what we found. I can take all those out of an athlete's life. We'll put them in a new franchise. There are no wild boars now. All those are gone. You have new fans. You have everything. You know where we get them? I'm going to move this back one. I'll tell you where it gets it. It takes you to 0. All it does is take you out of being actively disengaged to neutral. What we found is that engagement is deeply personal. And I can get you so engaged in spite of the fact that that trail is filled with wild boars everywhere. I can get you so fired up because somehow we've mobilized your mind, your body, and your spirit, and we're never going to have a world that doesn't have unbelievable demands. If you want to do something extraordinary with your life, Jim Lair can be extraordinary to his 3 sons. I don't care how many demands he's facing. And the same with my mother, the same with my ability to deliver to you today. Whatever storms are brewing in my life, I can still execute here today. And that's a big understanding as far as I'm concerned in terms of how remarkably adaptive the human system is if we can just train it appropriately. Now, there are two things that we can examine that we have control over. Most of you don't have control over a lot of these wild boars that are out there. We just don't. They're there. But there are two things that we do have control over. One of them is capacity, energy generating capacity. We know that if you have more demands on your energy than you can write the checks for, you just don't have the energy bank account to back it up. You start writing partial checks. And that's disengagement. You just can't deliver what the world is demanding from you. You can say, well, I'm older. It's just I don't have the energy I used to have. And I go, no! We can build capacity for expending and recovering energy up into people's 80s and 90s. We can give a 30 to 50% return if you'll simply do the right things in terms of training. You don't have to be struggling simply because age is a factor or any other factor. Most of you say, well, the job is just too demanding. I have no time to exercise. Well, I'll guarantee you, the return that you get in terms of your ability to weather storms and complete whatever mission you are on. Remember, the most important asset you have as a human being is the asset most of us never think about, and it is your energy. We've got to start respecting. This is river. This is literally the core of life. Your energy is life. Think of it as the river of life. And anything you do that adds to the capacity of that river adds to your capacity for life, for making a difference in the things that matter to you. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And so one of the things we want to do is anything we can do to increase oxygen transport, the ability of the heart and lungs to deliver oxygen, stabilize blood sugar, because energy in the human system is the union of oxygen and glucose. Fundamentally, that's how we operate. And then the second thing is most of us have never thought about managing energy. I mean, we don't even give a thought to it. It's like, I've thought about, financial management, we're all over. Build a whole industry around it. You're in the middle of it. Time management, we're all over that. Got a whole industry around time management. We recognize, these are limited resources. Yeah, we should manage the heck out of them. So what about energy? How come we've never thought about managing energy? Well, one of the things is you say we can't measure it. Well, I'm going to show you how we measured it. We'll do that in a minute. How we do audits of energy. And we started using very, very real physiological data. So we're going to change that. We're going to see if we can work on both of these dimensions. Here's an example of poor energy management. This guy's jamming down the road at 70, jamming fries and jamming on a hands-free cell phone. This is called multitasking. I will tell you, one of the biggest enemies we found of extraordinary is multitasking. And I know you got lots of balls in the air. I know you got so many demands on your energy, it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely incomprehensible to people who are not in your business, particularly during the seasons that pull you from one end of the universe to the other. But here's the takeaway. We found the human system is capable of focusing only on one thing at a time. And if you've got 20 balls in the air, 19 of them are in free fall at any moment. You will never be. If I multitask in whatever time I have with my mother, I guarantee you, I will not be extraordinary. Can you tell when someone's on a telephone on the other end, watching television or checking email or doing something on the other? Can you tell? How can you tell? And what's the message you get? If you feel someone doing email or watching TV on the other, what's the message you get? You're not important. I'm a busy person. You're not important enough to get my full and best energy. That's the ultimate gift I have to give, and I'm not giving it to you. Think about it. You're on the operating table. It's a critical surgery. Critical moment in the surgery. You check over and you look at, there's your surgeon checking email, talking on a cell phone, and having a bite to eat and doing you. How do you feel? Do you want your surgeon multitasking during your surgery? No. How about your air traffic controller flying in here to Orlando International? You want him talking on the cell phone? And no, I want your full attention. You just think about, if you really care about something, can you tell when you're driving behind somebody who's on a cell phone? How do you tell? Because they're stupid. now they're slowing down and the light's green. I don't know, honey, they're on drugs. I don't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden they're 100% intelligent. And now they're sounding completely stupid to the caller because they can't be on both tracks. In the military, in the Marines now, they have actually instituted multitasking classes that help people to understand how parallel tasks that are unrelated get people killed. But you can attend to a lot of detail and teach the human system to keep all these various details in alignment and under control and so forth if they're all part of one thing. But once you start switching venues, the brain loses its ability to track. And if you have someone in your office and you're working on a deal and you continue to type and then you carry on this conversation, what you're doing is splitting the signal. If you want to be extraordinary here, you must turn, drop what you're doing, and come back and then do it. You must understand that your ability to truly bring the full measure of your talent and skill to the surface is an acquired skill that requires certain protocols. And if the outcome isn't important, have at it. If you want to read the newspaper, watch television, and have a bite to eat for breakfast, have at it. No one's going to die. You don't want to be extraordinary there. But let's see what happens if you really care about it and that ball is dropped. How many here remember Fred Rogers? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? I didn't get this guy, I have to tell you. I had 3 sons. I understood if I come home and they're watching cartoons or they're watching Western or anything, and I could figure it out. I'm sitting there glued around the television. And this same guy was like slow motion. He would take off his coat and he'd go to the closet. And he would hang a jacket up and he'd put on this cardigan, kind of a goofy sweater. And he'd put this cardigan on and the camera would pan it. It was like drama. He's doing it again. And my kids are going, oh, God. I'm looking at him going, what? This is insanity. And then it pans down to his feet. And he takes his shoes off. And he puts on these slippers. Oh, the kids are going, yes. And he does it every single time. And then he says, boys and girls, we're going to open the book. Oh, no. What the world is this? And then finally I got it. We got involved in this research. I'm going to tell you, Fred Rogers was an absolute genius. He understood the greatest gift he had to give to children was his full, unconditional, best energy every time he was with them. He sends a message to children. You may not get this even from your parents. Maybe you won't get this from your teachers in school. You may not even get it from your schoolmates. But I will tell you, every single moment you are with me, you will get the hardest gift I have to give, and I will give it unconditionally every time. And in that message, he communicated to children all over the world that they were priceless. That they were priceless. He made a difference in the lives of millions of children through the gift of his energy. And most people missed it. I certainly missed it. I study Fred Rogers now like a maniac. I have all of his tapes. I want to know. This is a skill that's truly extraordinary. His ability to give is absolute. I can't even imagine Fred Rogers multitasking, can you? I mean, it doesn't even fit in my head. It's like, no. What you learn is that Fred Rogers, when you step into someone who is fully engaged into their space, time slows down. Think about it. When you step into the world of a multitasker, you get caught up in the storm. You can't think clearly. I went back over my career and I looked at all of the great coaches that I've ever been around, like Tim Gullickson, who was one of my absolute best friends. I traveled and toured with both he and his brother Tom in tennis, and who was the coach of Pete Sampras, who tragically died of brain cancer. But every single time you stepped into Tim Gullickson, he had an impact on every single person he coached, including Pete Sampras. We'll never forget him. He had the ability. He was Mr. Rogers. And every single person that I have seen, whether they are a parent, whether they are a son or daughter, This is the skill we absolutely don't get. We taught this to athletes to become fully engaged in what it is that mattered to them, and they started to light it up. Time slows down. It's almost like it's kind of this hidden thing. I never for sure got it. But this living laboratory helped us to distill some connections that were riveting in terms of the impact and the significance in real life, far more than in sport. Energy is our most precious resource. There is nothing. If you want to know how much someone cares about you, think about it. The three choices. Have you give you a big gift of money, an extraordinary lump sum of money, millions of dollars. Is that the best indication that someone cares about you? Or an extraordinary amount of time, 25 years, let's say, big time. Or third, an extraordinary investment of their full invest energy. I can give you money. It's a payoff. It doesn't mean anything. I can give you time. I can be in a marriage for 25 years. It's an arrangement. But I will guarantee you, I cannot give you my full invest energy unless I care about you. You tell me what you care about, I should see an alignment with your energy that reflects it. And when you are aligned, your life works. It absolutely works. And it's a skill. It's your firm's most precious resource. It's the energy we all bring. If this is one unit, and I recognize you're from all different, firms and companies, but the whole notion that completing a mission, we have to sum all the energy that we possibly can bring to the mission, and then we have to invest it. And we're going against the tide because we don't want to give it. It's like I don't want to give my life away. And energy is my life. So I hold back. I sit in the back of the room and I just wait for something to happen. In this room today, I guarantee you, you're going to get back equivalent to what you give and invest in this room. There's nothing Jim Lair can do for you. If you are somewhere else, there are a couple people, there's a chair over there, they didn't show up. It's called absenteeism. But we also have a word that's called presenteeism. It means you showed up, but you're still not there. And there's nothing we can do to get you to grow, to light it up, unless you are willing and able to make a world-class investment. Something, you don't have to agree with a thing I say. You just have to be here. Your energy has to be in this room. You have to be all over it. And trust me, it is not the amount of time I spend with my 3 sons. I have to have, the only thing time does is give me the opportunity to make a world-class investment of my energy. And if I am spending time with my sons, and I'm on cell phones, and I'm walking around, I haven't seen them all day, Mike, put that stuff away. I told you, I will get you when I get a chance. And I ask you, why are you working? Why are you working? So I'm working for my family. Oh, really? When did you give them your full invest energy? Oh, I'm tired when I get home. I don't have a lot of energy. I'm busy. I got 50,000 clients. No! Because you're going to fail to touch that white fence. And that one really matters. Tell me what you want to be extraordinary in. And we'll see if you've actually done the work and mobilized the protocols that enable you to make that thing happen, to make that mission complete. So I'm going to talk about 4 principles here. I'd like to talk about 4 principles that were fundamentally the basis upon which the entire training system was built. This is the distillation of how the human system was engineered. And if we could get in sync with these 4 principles, I will tell you, you will be a force to be reckoned with. And if you follow them, when you go into the next storm, the coming storm, you'll be so much better prepared. So it won't cost you your health. It won't drive you crazy into the furthest reaches of this stress abyss, the jaws of the alligator. Somehow you'll find a way to metabolize it in a much more digestible way. It's still going to be hard, but it'll be different. And here's the first principle. And it basically says this, that full engagement, to be fully engaged, you're going to have to summon all the dynamics of energy you have as a human being. And you and Jim Lair are complex energy systems. We are complex. We understand physical energy, we understand emotional energy, we understand mental energy, and we understand spiritual energy. And we got to bring them all to the table if you want to be extraordinary. Whatever matters to you, that's what we got to bring. And here is the way we felt the best graphical representation of how we are engineered as a species. Here's how we function as a species. This is in the form of a pyramid with physical energy at the base and spiritual at the top. Spiritual is the energy associated with your deepest values and beliefs. And I will tell you, this is the single most powerful force you have as a human being. If you can recruit this in the service of any mission you are on, it is incomparable. Every single time. This is where Dan Jansen went. Ultimately, we had to build the base, but fundamentally, he was able to do something he had never done before because he engaged what we call the energy of the human spirit. And I will tell you, this energy is boundless. It is your power as a human being. And most of us miss it. This is when we started to get people to do things in sport nobody could believe. At the base of this dynamics of energy, engagement, is physical energy. This is what Chris was trying to demonstrate to you, just in the physical sense, the importance of movement. Energy, as I said, all energy starts in the physical body. There's no way you get energy into your system other than through nutrition. Nutrition, that's why we have a whole major component of our training is nutrition. And I want the science of nutrition. I don't want all the crud that's out there contaminating what we're trying to do. Basically, fundamentally, what we're trying to do is figure out how do we stabilize blood glucose? And how do we bring enough oxygen transport? Your biological age, your full engagement age, is your ability to expend and recover energy efficiently. And it's all about glucose and oxygen transport, period. That's why we have you eating many meals a day. You should never go more than 3 hours without stabilizing blood sugar. You have to be very careful what you put into your system because it makes a difference in terms of your ability to execute, to think clearly, to summon the right emotions, and to bring genius to the table. So you start out at the physical level. You start with nutrition, and then we bring fitness into the equation to improve oxygen transport. Then rest and recovery and hydration serve as the basis for mobilizing this adventure into extraordinary. But if you don't eat right and you don't have good oxygen transport, you don't sleep enough, the journey, the mission is compromised and may be doomed from the beginning. So the first thing, you have to take care of yourself. And if you are leading, you must encourage everyone on your team, on your audit team, on your tax team, to take care of themselves in the storm. Once this starts to fade, everything starts to get crazy. So we work best when we have nearly a full tank. If you are empty, if you're running on empty, you're very stingy with your energy. In fact, you become like a striking rattlesnake. You want any energy vampire sucking up to you. Put Joe on voicemail. I can't handle Joe. You're very careful. I mean, you walk around, you can just feel people are irritable, cranky. They're, quote, in a bad mood. I'll tell you why they're in a bad mood. Because they don't want anybody taking energy out of them. So you give them a wide berth. So right away, we've got a dynamic here that's going to cause potentially a derailment. So you work best when you've got a full tank. Lots of energy. You can be a world-class spender because you got a lot in reserve. And then we move up into the emotional side. And we have a two-directional energy system in terms of the emotional side. These are the hormones that help us to navigate in life and to survive and to persevere through difficult times. And we have a two-dimensional axis that we basically fuel off of. One is called survival-based emotions. And when you saw those four athletes, what you saw with those four athletes was a mobilization of emotions that serve survival. They were in a pure panic mode. They were just out there trying to survive. Now, the human system works off that, but it's a very low-quality energy, and it's only good for a very short period of time. If you run the system, if you're always kind of like defensive in origin, defensive in how you're spending your energy, there's a toxicity to this energy that has a very high price, very much connected to coronary heart disease, all kinds of health problems, Life is no fun. It takes away your happiness. If you're working to survive, it doesn't work. We find the human system lights it up best when it is fueled fundamentally from what we call opportunistic emotions. When you're out there amidst the wild boars and you're going, this is an adventure. This client, this is the weirdest, this client is such a nightmare. I love it. I mean, I never worked with anybody so crazy. If I can get through this one, I can work with anybody. You were absolutely pushing me to my absolute limits, and because of you, I'm growing. I love being challenged with tough situations. But you really see this as an opportunity to grow. You're not in a survival mode, quite the opposite. So we work best when we're physically energized, we have lots of energy, emotionally connected to the positive emotions. We work best, that's the best quality fuel. Mentally, we work best when we are laser focused. These lights here are called incandescent lighting. That's called incoherent light. This is multitasking light. It's light spread over a wide area. You work best as a human species when you are laser focused. Laser light is called coherent light. And we don't necessarily understand and train ourselves to be laser focused. But if you want to be truly extraordinary, that's what it takes. So when you're physically energized, emotionally connected, mentally focused, and spiritually aligned with the mission, which means that your values, you have clear understanding. What am I supposed to do with this mission? What is the clarity of this mission? It's precise. And what is the link to something that matters to me? Why should I care about this? It's connected to my core values. The reason those 4 gentlemen took off and ran away is they didn't care about touching the white fence. Who cares? It was nothing connected to their deepest values and beliefs. They're out of there. But we can train them to understand the significance of touching that white fence, and we can train them to summon an emotion that is completely different, and so can we. So, if you look at this, you see, first of all, that the quality and the quantity is engaged in the body. The quality is fundamentally engaged in the heart in the mission. Focus, engaged in the mind, and force, engaged in the spirit. Now, we develop first kind of physically, then we develop emotionally and socially. We move up the pyramid, then mentally and cognitively, then ultimately spiritually and morally. That's how we develop. But extraordinary always starts from the top down. Always starts from the top down. First, we engage the spirit. Extraordinary clarity on the mission and its link to core values. Then, we engage the mind. Precision in the focus of one's energy. Laser focused. Then, we engage the heart in the mission. Extraordinary effort to recruit hope-filled, opportunistic emotions. And finally, extraordinary effort in ensuring we got the energy to drive the mission. Now, apply that to tax season. Apply that to the storms in the year that are most brutal for you, and I will tell you, something starts to change because you realize that it's energy that is the critical factor here. It's energy. So, clarity on the mission, laser focus, fuel from positive energy, and lots of physical energy in reserve. One of the things we had our athletes do that was a very, very important part of the training process was we started, and I'm going to ask you to do this over the next 60 days, at least 30 days. Constantly ask yourself this question. What is my mission now? What's your mission right now? What's Jim Lair's mission right now? What is my mission now? Well, you think about it, right now your mission is to try to learn as much as you possibly can. And not to let this hour and a half waste and go away. You get something out of this. So the next thing you want to do, once you understand the mission, then you align your energies with the mission you're on so that you do not waste energy. If you're somewhere else, if you're thinking about something else, if you're kind of off in some other place, you're missing this opportunity. You should go where you need to be so that you can take advantage, because this time is completely lost. Once you start aligning your energy with whatever mission you're on, every second counts in your life. Then it becomes sacred time. So if your mission is to chill out, just to kind of renew your batteries, to just kind of watch the game. If your energies are if your mission is to fall asleep now, then you don't want to be aligned. You don't want to be thinking and churning away on the business at hand, and you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, if you're with your 3 sons, Jim Lair, make sure you have aligned your energy. So I create a ritual that on my way home, as opposed to talking on the cell phone and being completely exhausted and walking in the door, never really giving him any attention, I make the decision, all right, I'm going to turn my cell phone off 15 minutes before I get home. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to put on some CDs and relax myself and prepare myself for a world-class investment of my absolute full and best energy for the first 15 or 20 minutes that I am home with my 3 sons and my wife. And I don't care what storm is, that is my mission. And I'm going to align myself. It's not the time I spent with them. I can spend time with my 3 sons and get nothing back. So I come in first time and I'm saying, all right, world-class investments. They mean the most to me. Alignment. Walk in and I go in there. There's nobody there. They've long since learned to give me a wide berth because I don't connect. So I walk in and they're watching TV. We're going, okay, I'm ready to, you want to play Monopoly? I don't care what you want to do. They go, nope, want to watch TV. I'm going, no, what should I do? Shall I try to convince them to turn the channel and watch the game? No. If you're really going to be there, you sit down with them and you align your energy with them and that mission. And they're going to think you're totally weird. They're going to look around going, Dad, what's the matter? You're weird. What's going on here? What did I do? Did I do something I shouldn't do? No, I just want to be here with you. And eventually over time, that simple ritual will, when you come home, they'll be at the door. And what you've done is you've aligned your energy with that mission. The same with clients, the same with anything else. A ritual, something very simple, which is an investment. You leave in the morning, you never see your kids, you write an original note. Dear Mike, I hope the work we did on your algebra last night, I hope I didn't screw you up too bad. I know you got that big test. Just know your dad is going to be thinking about you. I'm sorry I'm going to miss your soccer game. I'm going to have to stay late. I won't be home till 8:30 tonight, but just know that your dad's thinking about you. Love you. Little original note. Not Xeroxed, but an original note under the door to all 3 sons. In one day, you'll say, well, that's so insignificant, it's not going to do anything. All I can tell you is that investment, consistently made over the span of time, completely changes the trajectory of your life in that arena. That little investment causes growth in the relationship between you and your son, or your daughter, or your marriage, or whatever. That little ritual, which becomes an energy switching station that enables you to more fully align what you say is important with the most precious resource you have. And all of a sudden, you're going to walk into their room and you'll see they never threw away a single one of those ever. And they'll actually ask you to write it out because you forgot it yesterday. You begin to get a sense of the power of a single ritual that has energy regulating capabilities where we normally lose them. And we'll see it in just a minute. So, now how do you measure energy? If you look in your packet there, you will see that there's an audit. One of the big things, and I don't have time to go through it, but you can see it. We spent several years trying to understand if we could measure energy. That was the single biggest barrier to entry, was using an energy-based model, was whether or not we could actually measure it. This was our biggest proprietary secret. In fact, most of the stuff I'm talking about, I wrote 13 books, but I never delivered it because this was our competitive edge in sport. Once we got outside of sport, we've opened it up. And in your book that you have, every single major insight that we have garnered in 30 years is in that book. And one of the biggest breakthroughs for us was understanding how do we measure energy. Physical energy, we used a 4-point system. We started out using people like Monica Seles wearing sweat collectors. We turned it into a biochemical lab. We looked and analyzed all the trace elements of all her chemicals, and then she filled out a mood chart of how much energy she expended. We used all kinds of physiological data to help to see if we could use the human body as its own instrument for determining the quantity, quality, focus, and force of energy. And I can only tell you, after 6 years of work, there was no question. You can use your own body as an instrument for determining how much energy you have in your tank, the quality of the energy, the quality of the energy, the focus of the energy, and the intensity or force, which is fundamentally the spiritual side. 1 to 4 scale. I will tell you, get very good at this. So you can very quickly determine if you're fully engaged and where you are or where you are not. We had people wear little Velcro bands that helped them to determine at any point. We'd blow the whistle, and we would start getting confirmation. They would start understanding. At any moment, you should be able to tell if you're scattered or focused, negative or positive in your energy, low or full in terms of quantity, and whether you're committed or not committed in this moment. We had a saying. You get to all fours, but the four dimensions of energy, anything that matters, give me sweet 16. Sweet 16 is the final fours. That means you're fully committed, you are laser focused, you are positive in terms of your quality of energy, and you have lots of energy to invest. Sweet 16 in anything that matters. And I will tell you, you can do this. And when you do, it's like you take a whole level of control in your life that is like historically, it's just like we've not really bought into that. And for me, that was such an exciting breakthrough. Energy principle number 2. Full integrated requires that energy investments be balanced with intermittent energy deposits. You want to be a world-class spender? You want to be a world-class spender? You have to have world-class deposits to back it up. We're like a golf cart. You have to get plugged in at night to recharge yourself. And if you don't resupply the energy, your chances of being extraordinary drain away. So you must shepherd this resource with amazing care. You have to have rituals, habits. We learned that the whole habit structure of an athlete defined their professionalism. If they didn't have habits in sleeping and exercising and taking care of themselves and nutrition and so forth, if they didn't have those built into their DNA, they oftentimes in storms just went completely wild. And when things were rough, they just fell off the track and the mission was derailed. We wanted them to understand that you define your professionalism by your ability to ensure that your energy, you're going to take responsibility for the energy you bring to every venue you're in. And don't blame the storm. Don't blame, never blame the storm. So we have a pulse, and your pulse in life is really not only your ability to expend energy, to invest, but also to recover energy. In fact, if you come to our training center, we measure your capacity by your speed of recovery. You have a physical pulse, an emotional pulse, a mental pulse, and a spiritual pulse. And the stronger the pulse, the stronger your capacity for life, to make a difference in the mission, to light it up. And so we're trying to get people to, at any age in life, we can expand that capacity. Unless you've so ravaged your energy systems. My father was a good example. I hate to mention it, but the last 12 years of my father's life was a horror beyond description. It's a perfect example of what happens to you when you run out of energy before you run out of time. He had 12 additional years, but he smoked as a young man heavily. He got emphysema. And he went away physically, he went away emotionally, he went away mentally, and he went away spiritually. He was nothing. His capacity to be extraordinary, he couldn't even be there. He had no idea that this would be the price he would have to pay, or that we all would have to pay for him, such an unbelievable, magnificent human being going away. He had no pulse in any dimension of his life, and it was because his oxygen transport system was so compromised. But unless you have compromised it seriously, we can take you at 60 or 70 and bring so much life back into you to the time that you have. And that's what we want. I want to check out after I have no life left. If I want to be all used up when I go, and I want my energy and time to run out about simultaneously. And I think that's probably true with most of us. You look at these two gentlemen walking down a golf course. Some of you are playing golf a lot. We've done an awful lot of work in golf and in professional tennis. And both of these gentlemen have just hit two OB out-of-bounds tee shots. They're both in a storm. One of the gentleman on your right, looks like a soldier. He has developed rituals to help him manage energy in what we call the space between. This is a period of strategic disengagement. Golf, most importantly, is played between shots. The only time you need to be fully engaged in golf is right through here. the rest of it is mobilizing so that your genius, whatever your talent and skill is brought to the next. And it's all about energy. Ultimately, the energy that's transmitted from the club head to the ball. And that energy starts deep inside your soul. And the gentleman on the left there, he is in a storm. He is contaminating the space between. And his energies are not aligned with the mission. He's wasting precious energy. His head is down, his shoulders are down, the club head is down, his arm is gnarled around the club. He's disgusted with himself. And we drew blood, his cortisol levels, his biochemically is a whole different, he's in that survival mode. In tennis, the between shot time in tennis was the critical moment. We found that, the between point time in tennis, we found that the more linear the players' heart rates were at a very high level or at a very low level, the worse competitors they became. That the between point time in tennis, that 15 to 20 seconds, was a time that the best competitors actually dropped their heart rates anywhere from 10 to 25 beats. That we are oscillatory creatures. You don't have your heart rate the same all the way through the match. In fact, we have got to learn to oscillate. We are oscillatory creatures. Here's an example of someone you think, well, she's outside. No, and this is another example of multitasking. She's not moving. She's still on mentally and emotionally. She's not shutting that big engine off. We got to turn it fully on and fully off. That's how we work best as a species. Turn it fully on and fully off. And when you do that, you tune up the system. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And they all have to be oscillatory. So we taught our athletes to, when they're off, they're completely off. And they only had, in tennis, you don't have a lot of time in your life, but I guarantee you got 20 seconds. We could get a complete reversal, quantified with very sophisticated telemetry. They went through a complete physiological reversal in 16 seconds. Controlling their breathing, eyes on the strings. If we're remembered for anything in my life, it will be the work we did with professional tennis. We changed the way tennis players are trained all over the world. The way they walk, carry themselves between points, eyes on the strings. That seminal work was some of the groundbreaking work. And we did that with Courier, all the best players in the world. The process of expending and recovering energy we call oscillation. And linearity, anytime your life gets linear, and where you work, or if you go to the beach too long, it takes you out of life. You got to go into the hot zone and then into the beach, into the hot zone and into the beach. If you go into a hospital and you're sitting and you're lying in the hospital bed and you got this oscilloscope looking up there and you see that sucker go flat, ring your buzzer immediately. We're oscillatory creatures in an oscillatory world, and that's how we work best. So during that season, the season of your most dreaded workloads, all I can tell you, baby, is oscillate. Figure out how to oscillate in the storms, and you will be okay, your family will be okay, and you'll complete the mission. You'll be brighter and better than ever, but you must oscillate. That's why we teach people to become like sprinters. You look at Marion Jones, you look at Michael Johnson, ready for a 200-meter run, you look at him, and you watch him, and they run that, and you just say, oh, now there's an example of full engagement. They're all over it. You go, well, why are they so engaged? And I'll give you my answer why they're so engaged, because they only had to go to there. Just to there? Yeah, that's just to there. Yeah, I'll give you 100% to there. No problem. I'll light it up for you. Right there? Yeah, that's it. No further? No, that's it. I'll light it up for you. But then you have the marathoner. There's no high-fiving. There's nothing here. How far are you going? I'm going 26. Well, where's your goal line? Well, I don't know. I can't see it. It's a long way. Shut up. I don't want to talk about it. Because it's a long way. I'm in an energy conservation mode. I'm conserving energy. I just don't want to hit the wall. Hitting the wall is I'm running out of glucose or glycogen stores. It's like I die. So I don't want that to happen. Now, how far are you going? You going 26? You're going 30 to 40 years. And there's some nutcase up here on the stage telling you to light it up. Come on, light it up until the last day. Come on, let's do it. You're going, that is a psycho. But when you think about it, do you want your surgeon just grinding out their 4,000s? Just get through this sucker. Grind out another one. Grind out another tax season. Just grind. No, what kind of life is that? I want the genius to go, which means you got to be all over. You go, this is the great. I want my surgeon going, oh, do I want you? God, you are the greatest. And they can see all the detail and excitement around it. And I'm sure that's how people in your life would love to see you walking in going, am I fired up for you or what? I think you were a little weird, but that's okay. So what you've got to do is take that 30 to 40 years and you got to metabolize it into manageable sprints. I'm going to sprint for an hour and a half, and then I'm going to take a 15-minute break. I'm going to stabilize my blood glucose by having a good nutritious snack. I'm going to get up and walk around the building. I'm going to get outside. I'm going to hydrate. Let's rock and roll. We'll go again another 90 minutes. And the more the brutality starts to increase, the more you oscillate. And all of a sudden, you're not brutalizing your body. You're still bringing out your best. This is how we got people to do things no one has ever done before. You got to figure out how your system was engineered, and don't cross it when you really need it to be there with you. You don't train yourself, you don't eat right, you don't exercise, and you go into that horrible trough of stress, it eats you alive. Your cholesterol levels get higher, risk of heart attack goes up, your joy in life goes away. All of a sudden, all the things that matter most to you somehow get put on the back burner. And I say no. Don't blame the wild boars. Go into training like an elite athlete, like the elite athlete you really are. That's what we got to do. This is what you look like when you finish a sprint. You should be sprinting for 30 to 40 years. This is what you look like if you're a marathoner. I'm just hoping that this is not my air traffic controller when I'm coming in to Orlando International. The key is to light it up when it matters and to shut that sucker down when it doesn't matter, and to make an understanding of the difference. Don't shut that big engine down just because you're tired and you're coming home to your family, your children, the people that matter most to you. That's completely inappropriate. You're like a dead person walking. Your kids walk up and go, let's play Monopoly. And you go, oh, Monopoly. Oh, God. No, I love you to death, but I can't. I can't even, I just turn the game on, give me a pizza and a cold one. Oh, no, I love you, I tell you. But this has been you for the whole season. Do you think they get it? What's the message they get? They get, I'm just not that excited. Something's the matter with me. So what you've got to do is understand, you don't have to be that way, but you've got to find the spaces between where you can shut that big engine down, and shut it down strategically on your terms. And you never shut it down when it matters. Whether you're a nuclear power plant operator, an air traffic controller, a surgeon, or someone in your profession, because what you do really does matter. And the attention to detail that you have to have, your ability to make clear decisions, to deal with people in complex emotional situations. How much emotion do you have to deal with clients? You have to be Superman or Superwoman to get through some of these crazy situations. It's incredible what you're up against. The third principle is that full engagement requires that we push beyond our normal limits, training like an elite athlete every day. We've started to kind of get this message, but here's the message. If you have more demands on your energy than you have got capacity to deal with, you got to be in training. And the only way you get better is you must invest extraordinary energy beyond anything you've done in the past. And we can show you how you don't have to spend an hour in the gym. You can spend 20 minutes in the gym. The only thing is you have to really invest high-intensity energy in that moment you're there. You have to be fully engaged. You can't be reading a magazine and riding a Stairmaster. You want to be extraordinary? You got to be, in terms of building capacity, you got to bring this whole dynamic of power, full engagement, into the gym with you, into your jog, which turns into a sprint, which eventually defines a whole new level of capacity. You got to be fully engaged around what you're eating. You care about the energy you have to bring to the world, then you got to care about it. You got to train. I will tell you, it's more important for you than any crazy athlete that ever lived, because their arena doesn't matter. And that's the truth. Yours does. So every time you push outside that current level, you see that line above the capacity line, that means you've created a storm. You've gone into another storm. You push the window of discomfort. You're not going to get this bicep to grow. You're not going to develop more patience with your clients and with your children unless you push the envelope and go where you have never been before with your energy. So if you want to push beyond the level of personal confidence, of a sense of optimism, or when things get rough, you begin to get like kind of disrespectful, or you become like a striking rattlesnake, or whatever it is, you want to see yourself, the vision you have for yourself is very different. Well, if you want to go into training, you've got to invest your energy in what you want to grow. And be careful what you give your energy to. If you give extraordinary energy to impatience, it will also grow. Give it to anger, it will grow. Give it to revenge, it will grow. You give it your life, and those dynamics will grow, and they will become the dominant forces in your life. Trust me, that's how we work as human beings. That's how we function. So, here is a statement I hope you never forget, but it's the truth. The things that have pushed you in life the most have helped you the most to build capacity. The biggest storms that you've confronted, even the God-forsaken 9/11s in our lives, in some way, deep within the pain of those storms are forces of extraordinary growth. I know I changed because of 9/11. I became much more compassionate, a much deeper appreciation for the sacrifice of others, and much more of a diligence about how important our freedom is and, you know, the priorities in our lives. Every storm carries the potential for extraordinary growth. But we hate storms. We believe that life will be best when we reach a storm-free, when we're sitting on the front porch, sipping lemonade in the breeze and never have to do anything. We get out there from the reach of old man stress. I've got some bad news for you. If that happens, you're very likely to die. The first 6 months of retirement is the highest period of personal mortality you will have on this planet. When you finally get what you want, no stress. You're more likely to die then than at any other time. From all the data that we have, here's the takeaway. We are a mission-specific species. We are designed to be on a mission. And when we no longer have a mission that stands in front of us, that brings all the storms, all the demands, all the stress hormones, all that crap, we are designed to self-destruct and make room for someone who is on a mission. If you go into retirement, believe me, you've got to switch from one mission to another and bring stress into your life like crazy and be all fired. You've got to light it up for something else, or you will go away. You'll lose your physical capacity, your emotional capacity, your mental capacity. You'll start to lose your ability to navigate in life. And that's who we are. I guarantee you. That's what we found in our lab, and it seems like everywhere we go it's confirmed in the research. And the last one is that we're creatures of habit fundamentally. You don't manage energy by conscious will and discipline. We don't have much conscious will and discipline. And those of you who think you've got a lot, I got something to tell you. You don't have very much. It's all about the same. All of you how many here exercise almost every day? You know, you raise your hand. There's a few back there. You go, oh, you guys make me sick. You exercise every day. You get so much self-discipline. Well, if I really got inside your head and I ask you, is it harder for you to exercise or harder for you not to exercise? You'd say, oh, it's a lot harder for me not to exercise. Oh, so you don't get any self-discipline credit for that sucker at all. You get credit when you don't exercise. How many here eat breakfast every morning? Every single morning. You raise your hand. Oh, well, you guys, you look at you, God, you got so much self-discipline. You make me sick. God. And I say, well, is it harder for you to eat breakfast or harder for you not to eat breakfast? Oh, it's harder for me not to eat breakfast. Oh, so you don't get any credit for that one either. And we go right down the whole deal. We begin to look at the fact that our lives are fundamentally run by habit. In fact, as much as 95% of our life is run by habit and routine. And if your life works, if you're able to execute under pressure, it's because of the habits that you build into your DNA. Unfortunately, those 4 athletes were not prepared, did not have the habits to handle, did not have the rituals to handle that storm. Special forces do. Elite anti-terrorist teams do. What do you need in the form of rituals to ensure safe passage? To ensure that you are investing? That whole scenario on that trail was all about energy. It's all about what they did with their energy. What they did and didn't do with their energy. If you've got rituals to ensure that when you're with your family, with your clients, when you're about to go to bed, you shut that big sucker down, You start building rituals that ease you. It's in your DNA. You are wired to be high performance. And every day you get better. Every day you're working on a new ritual. It takes about 30 to 60 days to build. And if you want to build a new ritual, all you have to do is invest extraordinary energy in that ritual. So whether it's the note under the door, whether it's take a deep breath when you start to feel impatience kind of mobilize itself in your persona, you take a deep breath, maybe you say to yourself, kindness matters. You go back to the value that's driving it. You count to 10 or count to 5, and then you say something about that's very encouraging and very complimentary about this person in terms of your confidence in them to get the job done, and walk away. You repeatedly do this for the span of 30 to 60 days, and you invest as much high-quality energy in that as you humanly can. That will someday, within a relatively short time, become part of who you are and how you operate in storms. And that's how you build it. The number of routines that we have built in people's lives since we've got this understanding is, for me, it's really exciting. If you go into a special forces camp, if you training, you look at a special forces soldier as opposed to a regular soldier, the difference are the rituals, their ability to go into harm's way and to execute flawlessly. That's what separates them. You go into a surgical suite, and you see these remarkable rituals of surgeons. They do the right thing at the right time with their energy. A pilot does the same thing. They have these pre-flight rituals. Anywhere you go where you see someone doing extraordinary things under extraordinary conditions, like athletes, they have rituals, whether it's bouncing the ball, whatever it is to ensure that your energy is brought in exactly the right way so that the quantity and quality, focus and force of energy is delivered at exactly the right time in the right sequence. That's all golf is. That's all golf is. So the between shot time, the course management, all of these mobilizations, pre-shot routines and so forth are critical in the whole scope of how you deliver ultimately the energy to the ball and the club. And you can take responsibility for it. And the bad shots and the bad lies and all the wind, all those wild boars that are out there, in fact, we never blame them. Because it's us that determines the path of our energy. We can take responsibility for it. So, we manage willpower. We manage by habit, not by willpower or self-discipline. So we've got to get as much, that little wedge of 5%, we've got to recruit, and to get the good stuff in there as much as possible, and try to get the stuff that isn't working in our lives out. But we want to focus more on not so much trying not to do something, but what is it that we want? Give our energy to what we want to grow. Rather than focusing on trying not to be impatient, focus on patience. Focus on, if you want to build time management, focus on becoming more efficient with your time. You want to build more competence in terms of your ability to shut that big engine off quickly, to be able to go and fall asleep quickly and not have all that stuff racing around. You have to have a ritual that you go through, whether it's reading a certain page in a book or reading at a certain time. You have a whole series of things that you do that just carry the physiology right into slow wave sleep. And without those rituals, I put you into the storm, you won't function. And it compromises the mission. So this is what a ritual looks like. It's the convergence of, number one, of value. You tell me what matters most to you in your life we should build a ritual around. You tell me your marriage matters. How about a date night every other week? How about every Saturday you spend a certain amount of time, maybe 20 minutes where you talk and she talks or he talks, and you just spend some time investing energy, high-quality energy in each other. That little ritual can save a marriage. I promise you. It seems so stupid, so simple, little tiny, simple ritual. But if I've learned anything in 30 years, is the power of a single ritual to change the trajectory of a person's life in that arena. I believe this is how you make changes, little tiny changes. You only take on one or two at a time, but they are powerful in terms of eventual outcome. So it's the intersection of value, of time. You have to have some time. The convergence of time and value, of time and energy, though, you've got to have, again, time has no value without its intersection of energy, and then there's some action around it. So it causes you to do something at a particular time that brings energy at a certain time. It's like your sprinkling system. You say, I value my lawn. And my lawn is valuable. And I can't use my self-discipline to remember to go out and water it all the time. It drives me nuts. I always forget. I can't remember it. So I install an automatic sprinkling system, a mechanism by which I ensure that whatever is needed in that lawn, in terms of nurturing it, in the form of water, it gets nurtured on time, and I don't have to worry about it. Now I'm free to just be myself, and I don't have to even give a thought to it. That's fundamentally what rituals do. They ensure that when you come home at night, when you're with clients, when you're eating right, you're sleeping, and you get into a rhythm, not a robot. In fact, the more you get these wired in, the more you're free to be yourself in a completely spontaneous way, because you in fact know that you're going to do the right thing at the right time. And all of a sudden, that wilderness of stress that you go into doesn't seem so daunting, because now you're equipped, just like a Blue Angels precision flying team. It made the hair stand up on my neck when I saw how brilliantly they had engineered that culture, where everything that mattered, they built a brilliant ritual around it to ensure everything was done in exactly the right way, because fractions of seconds determine the difference between living and dying on that team. Everything from how they introduced themselves to Commander Dom every morning, the way the energy they brought to the team, the preparation the night before, every single piece of that performance puzzle that was important was ritualized. And they were good, and they could execute. So, this is fundamentally the training roadmap that we use. Starts with full engagement, just the technology. That was the 4 principles. Then we try to get people to face the truth. Well, who and what is getting your best? How fully engaged are you? What's the truth? The raw truth. And then the question is, how engaged do you want to be? You know, we believe that engagement is the core of life. And the more that you get kind of splintered off and you lose kind of this ability to light it up, life goes away. It's almost like, engagement is the center of life. And the more you can find a way to light it up, the more everything comes. If I light it up at work, I light it up with my family, no one loses if you start becoming more engaged in the whole context of your life. Disengagement carries a very high cost, personally and professionally. And so if who I say I want to be and who I am are just simply not in sync, that means the energy in alignment is not there. We use rituals. That's the action part to get the alignment we want. We build rituals that change the forces of energy, either in recruiting or in directing energy, so in fact our lives work in the direction we want them to work. So, for those of you who want to take you can take this test. You can get it on our website. It's a free test, an engagement, just to kind of get a sense of how engaged you are in the multidimensional physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You can do that on our website. But I hope some of those ideas somehow resonated with you. I hope that some of that, I know it's a lot of material, but hopefully there's something there that really touched a chord. And once you identify something that you're going to change in your life, maybe right now you've thought about something you'd like to change, I'm going to tell you what that becomes. This is the last thing I want to say to you. That becomes your white fence. That becomes your white fence. That becomes your mission. And I can only tell you, complete the mission. Touch that fence, because it demonstrates that you can in fact change, and that the world is not in control, you are. And should you encounter wild boars along the way, and you very likely will, either real or imagined, maneuver around them. Find a way, build rituals so that you in fact can handle, contain that storm, so that you in fact can complete that mission. Your life depends on it. The life of people you care about depend on it. The life of the firm you represent depends on it. Touch the white fence. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.